Hello, welcome to the Self Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 1 Social Theory and its Context. And our topic is the Marxian ideology. Let us now turn to sociology in Germany in the same span of time. In Germany, since the beginning, there was a distinction between Marx and Weber and other sociologists. Thus, Karl Marx 1880 to 1883 was himself deeply influenced by Hegel 1770 to 1831, but was to later contradict him, while some disciples remained with Hegel's ideas, others began to criticize his system. Hegel's philosophy emphasized the dialectic and idealism, of which the latter was a second concept. Thus, dialectic itself provides a view of the world as well as an image of the world. Thus, the dialectic stresses the great importance of processes, including those of conflict. Similarly, the image or the ideas of the world is also dynamic. While Marx accepted the use value of the dialectical processes, he wanted to apply it in the study of economics rather than to leave it as a concept applied to ideas alone. Further, Hegel's idealism stressed the mind and ideas and not the material world. There is a saying that it is the mind that is significant, and that the mind and psyche alone that exist. This is admitted an extreme proposition, and Feuerbach tried to ameliorate it by saying that the Hegel had overemphasized consciousness and the spirit of culture. Critic Hegel Feuerbach pointed out that it was society that projected God and put him in a hollowed position above themselves, getting separated, distanced from God himself, but nevertheless imbuing God with various uplifting attributes. Marx, though aware of Hegel's and Feuerbach's positions, was critical of these theories. For Marx, everything could be reduced to a material base, not to the mind and its processes. For Marx, capitalism was the problem which led to alienation, polarization, and revolution. And for Marx, revolution by the proletariat was the answer to this evil. Marx's approach led him to the work of Ricardo and Smith, who used political economists, and it was these studies which finalized Marx's approach, which pointed out that the profit of the capitalist was at the expense or exploitation of the wage earners or laborers. Thus, the surplus value was very basis of exploitation and the root of the capitalist system. In fact, the fast growing rate of capitalist system siphoned of profits large enough to reinvest into the economic system. Marx's sociology created many critics in its wake, and many works focused on the type of activist orientation that was part of his approach. There were other reasons that led to an eclipse of Marx's dialectical materialism, but his ideological aspect was a major area of difficulty for other sociologists and thinkers. This radical approach was not appreciated by the conservative sociologists who had been bred to hate traces of anarchy in the social fabric, not just the disruption of the Enlightenment or the Industrial Revolution. Instead, Marx was fueling through his studies a mood of hostility and aggression which Marx felt would lead to a polarization of classes, and the poor exploited proletariat would violently dispossess the capitalist class of their factories, industries, banks, and so on. Thereafter, a period of social harmony would begin, in which there was a societal or community ownership of the means of production. There would be an end to exploitation of the have-nots by the haves. This thumbnail sketch indicates the kind of radical approach that Marx had was basically oriented to a violent overthrow of the exploiting capitalist by the exploited proletariat. Marx's emphasis therefore was on the exploitative or oppressive nature of capitalism. His theoretical analysis was aimed at removing this aspect of capitalism. This, according to Marx, meant a violent, bloody, anarchic kind of overthrow of capitalism. Such a revolution would by itself remove the alienation and other negative aspects of the capitalist social formation. Now let us wind up the session. Take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the self-learning podcast.